this research process and all those aspects. So, in today's session, we are going to elaborate, we are going to discuss very important, certain very important research methods that are part of and that are considered as very significant for accomplishments uh, that we have earned, that we have evolved as a part of our understanding in social research in general and research in rural development in particular. So, in today's session, we are going to discuss all these methods one by one extensively so that we can understand the basic difference and we can develop great deeper understanding in all those research methods like evaluation research, like action research, and of course there are also survey methods and intensive research methods like case study. So let's start today's session, and for that we have to understand that today we are going to cover Unit 7 and Unit 8 of second block. So there, first of all, we have to understand what key research methods that are being appreciated and being applied in this area of rural development, because these research methods are very important for our understanding. Why? For instance, let's take one example. As you can see from the slide, one type of research method is known as evaluation research. As the name suggests, evaluation research is very productive, very profitable for rural development areas. Why? Because this is a kind of research method that helps us to understand what are strengths and what are weaknesses of a particular of a particular development program. So there can be several development programs being implemented by various agencies. Agencies can be government, can be non-governmental, but all those agencies are actually working for certain specific objectives. So this type of evaluation research is basically a research method which is going to help us for the assessment part, and this is a kind of assessment of the implementation and the planning implementation of that particular development program. Any agency, like for example we can take panchayati raj institution in case of rural India. In case of rural India, panchayati raj institution is one of the very significant agency that is actually working on grassroots. It is directly responsible for the development projects. Those are planned in accordance with the felt needs of particular population of a village. So a panchayati raj institution can have several types of programs. Like they can have programs for the infrastructure development of that village. Then they can also have another program in the in this that area of water and sanitation, or they can have another health awareness campaign. So, in evaluation research, generally we try to evaluate those programs. It can be a program. Number two, it can be an agency, uh, and this assessment, this evaluation, it has to be done in the light of those particular stipulated objectives, so that we can understand what results have been achieved or what results have not been achieved. So it's a kind of measuring that success and the failure during the planning, during that implementation part, during that accounting part. There are several phases of a particular development program. So all these agencies, are there in the rural area for the supply of continuous supply of goods and services, or you can say development program and services for the betterment of rural society. But sometimes we can find out that there are certain programs that are actually not very prolific in the sense of in the sense of their objectives. One objective is half achieved, another objective is achieved in full, while the rest of the objectives are not found are being performed actually in that process. Why? Because whenever we were talking about this uh, research in society, that is the social research, because it is full of subjectivity. So in a rural development area, what are we going to face? We are going to face multiple layers of complexity. For instance, if you are going to talk about education, it is not just the education facility which is going to be there in the vicinity of that particular village. Rather, studies have been proved that students, those children, those are actually being taken care of, being attended, not only the tutorials that are being offered them by their particular institute, educational institute. Rather, when their students are also getting help from their educated guardians. I mean, if mother or the father of that child is providing, is helping that child in education, it is a kind of assistance as well as the awareness part. The outcome of that education is going to be completely different. So the problem with this kind of subject, which is going to be in case of rural areas of rural development, so this kind of social reality is actually very complex, very complicated, because of multiple factors. And that is why we have to use not only just logical validity, but we are also you can say it's a kind of requirement on the practical understanding that there can be a very different kind of situation which we are going to face when we are going to conduct that study. So this is first of all the need. What is the need behind this kind of research methods? Why do we need these research methods in areas of rural development? Why? Because sometimes logical understanding is not enough, logical validity of not enough, but uh, because social reality is very complex, it varies from a particular society to society, it varies, and at the same time, it is going to be varied on the basis of their location, because that is again in a different kind of infrastructure, a different kind of access to institutes that are providing you health facilities, that are providing you educational facilities, and they are also providing you employment generating activities. So there can be a completely different kind of situation in one village as compared to that of the another village. So the first thing, the complexity of this kind of subjective uh, research topic is going to be completely different from what we are actually going to study in a typical investigation of a particular thing which has nothing to do with sociology. Like if you are going to do the same experiment in the field of mm, typical sciences like physics, like chemistry, those things are in your hand, those factors are in your hand. You can um, very scientifically you can differentiate between those factors. But in case of scientific investigation in social research in general and in rural development in particular, it is not possible for us to control one factor and to study only another factor of in a particular study. So the first thing that the complexity of this area is very particular, that is the uh, research in the area of rural development. Second thing, and that is also very important, why do we need these research methods like evaluation research and action research, is the basic uh, requirement of this field. Whenever we are talking about these programs, those are related to development policies, those are related to development dimensions, we have to admit one thing, that in most of the cases, uh, you can't say that this is going to be the full and final, very comprehensive and complete kind of model for rural development. Either it is primary education, or it is secondary education, or it is related to skill enhancement that is going to help them for employment generation. Why? Because after 2 years, there can be a change in their needs. Number two, the change in infrastructure. Number three, change in their patterns of interaction. Like if a remote village is going to be connected by road to a particular urban conglomeration, then the pattern of interaction is going to be completely revolutionized within a short span of 2 or 3 years. Because in that case, at least two or three students, or you can say vegetable sellers, or you can say for health facility, people will start going there. So there is a kind of interaction, a completely different pattern is going to be evolved. So again, that means this continuous process of change is going to affect every dimension of a particular process of development. Either it is development of health facility, or it is development of rural rural development, or it is a kind of area where it is related to the agriculture specifically. So every time those needs are going to be changed, that means not a single model is going to help us to predict or to preach that this is going to be the full and final model. That means evaluation research is basically a very fundamental research method for our understanding. Why? Because the whole idea of rural development depends on number one, the concept of felt needs. That means stakeholders' needs. It doesn't matter how much have you been learning through your experience, through your knowledge in the field of rural development, unless and until you are going to incorporate actually those supply of those needs, supply of those services by the help of some development program, which are actually being felt by the community, by the direct stakeholders. So evaluation research is going to be the foremost important, the basic, very fundamental kind of research method in this area of rural development. So it is very important to understand, as you can see from this slide, what is the use, or what are the requirement, why do we need evaluation research? Because this kind of evaluation research methods can help us to evaluate flow or the supply of development programs and services of a particular agency, that can be governmental and as well as it can be non-governmental. Then Those are actually a kind of evaluation, not the evaluation of the that agency as such. Rather, those are specific in terms of results. Results are they able to this agency or a particular service or a particular program is facilitating good results or they are lacking in results. I mean, the outcome. What is the outcome and the impact? It is partial, it is negligible, or it is going to be a successful development program. So, this kind of evaluation is the prime purpose behind this evaluation research method. Then, it is also recognized as an integral part of the research process, not only for a governmental agency but as well as for the non-governmental agencies. Why? Because the basic idea of rural development is going to tell us that this area is going to be changed after a short span of time or the longer span of time. For instance, if you are going to talk about agriculture, or let's take something else like source of renewable energy. In last session, one of our fellow participant had mentioned that this can be an area of research analysis. So let's take that for today's understanding. In case of renewable energy, we have to understand what are other programs related to those renewable energy options. So first of all, we have to understand what options were available earlier. Then we are going to understand how those options of renewable energies were uh, too costly to bear. That means, no doubt, those were actually saving the energy, but actually those are out of the budget of that kind of particular stakeholder analysis. So our stakeholder analysis is basically emphasizing the need or to cut down the cost of this renewable energy. So this is a kind of eye opener. This is a kind of learning that can be availed with help of evaluation research. That means one by one we have to understand how this evaluation research not only can help us to improve our outcome, rather it can also help us to enhance the impact, the coverage of a development program or the supply of a service which is going to be proposed, which is going to be facilitated by a particular development agency. So basically, evaluation research is action oriented tool. It is not just a theoretical research where we are conducting a scientific inquiry in certain development area so that we can acquire knowledge. No, these are not purely theoretical studies. Why? Because evaluation research is originally action oriented tool. So first of all, we try to understand how can we improve the planning process, the implementation process, or the training process, the infrastructural process of a particular development program, and how can we enhance the impact and the outcome of that particular program. So this is the whole area of evaluation research. That means it is very clear from this discussion that evaluation research are not typical research tool that are going to help you to develop a general kind of understanding. No, they are not. They have always a very specific purpose since the beginning. That means evaluation research methods are quite different from basic research, and sometimes we also try to understand this type of research methods like evaluation research as a special branch of applied social research. It's a kind of applied social research because this is a kind of praxis. This is a kind of praxis means it not only involves theorization of of certain development factors. Rather, it is going to systematize the relationship, to analyze that integrate relationship between those factors, intervening factors, and independent factors involved in a particular development process, so that they can understand how can we enhance the impact or the outcome of a particular development program. While in just contrast to that, conventional social research methods are basically for the purpose of acquiring knowledge, answering those questions which are left unanswered or partially answered, and construction of theories is construction of theory, or the enhancement of the gap of knowledge is their main outset. So it is actually not the case with evaluation research. Evaluation research is completely different. Now let's see how we call it to be different from that basic research. Why? Because on the basis of evaluation research, we decide whether a program should continue or it has to be modified. And even if it is a kind of cost and effect analysis, and you can say that it is going to be very costly, but actually it is not helping us, that means we also can abandon a particular kind of program. For example, in case of um, Indian context, in case of Indian context, let me tell you very frankly that during our gradual evolution in the understanding of rural development programs, we were actually focusing on the employment generation activities. But by the end of 80s, we could make out that there has to be some sort of uh, a very integrate kind of relationship that can be the foundation, that can be the new beginning of a whole series of employment programs. And what was that missing gap? That missing gap was the food security. So it was considered that let's take these two important indicators as a kind of completely interrelated asset in rural development. So, the planning of employment generation programs was started being experimented with the purpose of food security. And then they started talking about development of the local resources, sorry, infrastructure, local infrastructure, with help of a particular employment generation program that is also going to be a kind of uh, channelizing the food security process to those who are actually the most underprivileged in a particular area. So this is a kind of gradual evolution, gradual development, and these approaches are very important, and that is why evaluation research is very important. Another is the short term purpose, that is budget related issues, which particular uh, development scheme or development program requires enhanced supply of capital and enhanced supply of funding. Which particular branch of uh, working staff in a particular development agency requires periodical training more often than the staff which is going to be the part of those other dimensions, or you can say other parts of a particular organizational process. For example, one part is accounting. All of us are must be aware that accounting is also a very important activity in a particular development agency. But at the same time, uh, staff which is going to conduct those studies, the staff which is going to be involved in the process of planning and conducting a particular study have to be has to be more trained, because the evolution of this research method has to be multifaceted. And because this process is multifaceted, that means as a staff, as a very prolific development professional, your staff has to be trained in all those important techniques which are actually being refined by various researchers gradually. So there are also short term objectives that can also enhance the outcome or the impact in a particular development program. So it can also evaluate the budget requirement, it can also evaluate the training level of that, and the requirement related to the training skills of that particular development agency. And the whole process is basically turning to the perspective which is very target oriented, in the sense that they are always going to promote evaluation in terms of only intended goals. So when intended goals are going to be achieved, going to be accomplished, that means evaluation research is going to say that we can continue with this kind of policy. But of course, these are the changes that can be introduced in this part. And like this, we can not only modify our perspectives, our approaches to a particular development program, to a particular research area in a rural community, but we can also abandon, or we can modify the way we are actually investing our budget or training our staff. So it's a kind of very helpful kind of research tool in a case of rural research, rural development. Now, despite of all these kind of profitable hallmarks, the major problem behind this in this evaluation research is that there can be two types of situations which are actually going to hinder the actual productivity of evaluation research. That means these two have to be considered. Why? Because evaluation research is also a kind of one particular method in research methods, and not a single research method can be labeled as full and final or very productive. Every research method is incorporating its own limits. So every research method is going to be productive only when you are going to estimate what are the limitations, what are the limits in that particular research method. So is the case with this particular research method. When results are equivocal means when you one by one research, I am conducting a particular research in a development program or related to a development program in a particular setting, and that is saying that this development program is working very well, while in the other area, in the other village, in the other community, another study is saying the performance of this particular development agency is not going to be very profitable, particularly for the women. That means you are not able to promote or to deduce just one clear cut generalization by this kind of studies. That means when results are equivocal or contradictory, that means you have to understand that research evaluation research are actually limited, in the sense they are also exposed to several factors. For instance, in case of a well trained staff, the implementation of a particular development program can be completely different from that of the program, which is actually being handled by those who are not equipped neither with the appropriate training nor with the update knowledge. That means one factor can contradict, it has the potential to make your results completely either contradictory or equivocal. That means this is the limitation. That means evaluation research are limited in the approach. That means, again, in other words, we can say that on the basis of one particular study, we can't say that this program is going to be failure in all those areas of a particular country. So this is the first limitation of evaluation research method. And the other is that in most of the cases, sometimes those programs are very structural. That means they take time to display, to narrate, to show you that actually that those programs are helping those underprivileged strata. These underprivileged stratas, because they are suffering, they are facing multiple kind of challenges in their practical life, in their daily life. It can be socio-cultural, it can be economic, it can be political. That means sometimes it is not possible to evaluate immediate results or the visibility of that immediate outcome or the immediate impact. That means, again, it is a very crucial limit of this limitation of this research method. So we have to understand that evaluation research cannot be very deterministic in the overarching sense. That means you can have a particular kind of, you can develop a particular understanding, a very great insight related to one particular aspect of that particular development program, but you can't claim that this is going to be full and final uh, in terms of universal values. This is the approach which we are supposed to bear whenever we are using evaluation research method in rural development. Now, let's talk about the types of evaluation research on the basis of the goals. I mean, on the basis of their foremost objective, we can categorize, we can divide goals of evaluation research into, types of evaluation research into two parts. First is formative evaluation research, and the second is summative evaluation research. Let's not make it very complicated. Let's try to understand by just lucid things, just lucid terminology. Formative means one evaluating a program which is actually in the primary area or in the preliminary stage or in the formulation phase, while summative is something which is going to always evaluate the after effect. So it's a kind of time margin between this goal. That is why we call it formative. So formative evaluation research design is focusing to gather the information as much as you can. It has to be very wide in its dimensions. That means you can develop a very general kind of understanding as what are the basic uh, factors that can prove prolific, that can prove profitable in this particular development program. That is why essential data is required, because you are in the formulation stage. So you need all that basic data. For example, uh, let's say if you are working with a team which is going to work for the mm, child child rights based issues. So what do you need? You have to understand who are the most vulnerable groups of children in that particular population. So you need a whole extensive range of the basic data as what is the population of that particular in what is the population of children in that particular data, and how many categories can be defined as vulnerable. That means you need a kind of basic data. On the basis of that, you can have an understanding that this is the major categorization, and only after that you can plan or you can formulate one particular development program. For example, if you can see that this is a war affected area, that means needs of children those are living in war affected areas are completely different from those children who are living in a peaceful area where all those agencies are working very well. But that is not the same case in a particular society which is basically suffering from this kind of situation. Okay, so basic focus, basic distinguishment, basic distinct hallmark of formative evaluation research is that it is basically going to work for the uh, a very essential basic data, so that you can develop a general understanding for the particular problems, and only then you can develop certain models, certain strategies that can be suitable. So suitable intervention strategies can be planned only by only on the basis of the basic information that is going to be the basic, that is going to be the essential, that is going to be the preliminary in any research. Now, let's talk about the other type, that is the summative evaluation research. Summative evaluation research, as the name suggests, is it is related to actually evaluating the impact or the outcome of a particular program. So, both have different focus. In formative evaluation research, the purpose was to have basic understanding on the basis of that basic data. Okay, but so that you can plan, so that you can develop suitable intervention strategies. But summative evaluation research is all about analyzing, evaluating, assessing those suitable intervention strategies, whether they are going to be helpful or not, whether they can be short term or long term, whether they can be uh, whether they can be applied in other areas as well or not, whether we can continue with those programs or we have to abandon this kind of program. And another difference, because the focus is going to be different, another difference is the dependence on the methodology, different methodology. I'm not saying that only and only qualitative research methods are going to be applied in case of formative evaluation research. Research is always a kind of triangulation of various research studies, various research methods. But formative evaluation research requires qualitative understanding. That means qualitative and extensive research methods can be used for formative evaluation research. So there can be seen more use of qualitative research tools. But in case of summative evaluation research, because you are supposed to conduct the whole inquiry in terms of proving right or wrong, proving measuring success or failure, you would need uh, statistical tools. quantitative research methods. That means uh, the whole uh, the whole methodology can also be distinguished in terms of formative evaluation research or the summative evaluation research. Then the biggest limitation, again, every time we are going to discuss any kind of research method, we have to understand it is never going to be full and final, it is never going to be universalistic in its impact, in its coverage, in its objective. That means we have to be aware about the limitation of every particular research method. So, in this case, actually, whenever you are going to talk about particularly summative form evaluation research, those agencies can resist your attempts because nobody wants to be labeled as the bad performer, despite of your continuous request, despite of your continuous efforts to convince them that this is not the performance of your efforts, this is actually the performance of the development process. That means the planning part, the implementing part, and the supply part. But most of the time administrators or those staff, those are actually accountable for this kind of services, they may resist this kind of studies. Another problem, sometimes because evaluators are coming, which we are going to discuss in next slides. When evaluators are coming from outside, they are not aware about the budget problems, about the time constraint, about socio-cultural constraints. So sometimes they are very idealistic, and in that case, they can ruin the overall result or the outcome of a particular evaluation research. Now, let's talk about types of evaluation research, because as we were telling as we were trying to understand what are limitations, we can make out that these limitations are going to be affected by various factors. So we can have here two types of categories regarding types of evaluation research. One category is going to be to focus on the evaluators. That means who is going to conduct that evaluation research. Person who belongs to the agency in itself is going to be the internal evaluation. In this process, the personnel, the executive of the agency can interact with those staff on all levels regarding accounting, for instance, from the planning division to that of the research and research tool designing, to the other team, or those are engaged in other processes of a particular development agency's functioning. So we call it internal evaluation in the sense because evaluators belong to the in group. They are part of that particular agency. They are particular part of that particular group. That is why it is a kind of in group evaluation. So we call it internal evaluation. Now the basic limitation of this internal evaluation research is because they belong to the same group, they belong to the same agency, you can't expect them to be very objective, to be very critical about their approach, because being part of a particular process, you can develop a kind of ignorance to your own prejudices and bias. So, this is a kind of limitation, and at the same time, it has a very good advantage as well. Internal evaluation is giving you a profitable edge over other types of evaluation research in the sense that uh, because you are akin, you are familiar with that constraint part. So you will be in better position to understand, because no research is free from this kind of constraint. There are budget constraints, there are time constraints, sometimes there are also trained staff constraint. So they can understand that, okay, this particular program is suffering from this kind of performance just because we don't have this kind of trained staff. Okay, so it is also showing you advantage. Now, when the evaluators are actually coming from some other agencies, then we call it external evaluation. Okay, that means this evaluation has to be done from a fresh perspective because they are not part of that particular research process. So it is giving you advantage to uh, to conduct a better objective inquiry, better objective investigation of the situation. So this is a very important thing. Then another kind of the third type is actually a kind of combination of those first two categories. That is, some evaluation team can incorporate both executives and personnel from that particular group or agency, as well as there can be executives those are actually belong to other agencies can make part of this. So it is a kind of joint collaboration of evaluators where certain executives are coming from the in group while certain executives are coming from the out group. So this is a kind of situation here. In case you guys have anything important to discuss, mm, do you need to ask any question or query? So far, are things clear to you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so can we proceed?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am.
So till 5 into 3, we can just proceed and we'll take 10 minutes break.
At what time do you require this break? Right now?
No, 30 530 530.
Okay, 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 got it.
It means,
Please help
ma'am,
me to.
10 minutes after.
Okay, got it. And please remind me once again. Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So,
Yeah,
ma'am, about the actually the external evaluation.
external.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah. So seems that most of the time, as I have just implemented through international project from international donor, then through a third party organization, they conducted this external research. As it was for the education, they independently conducted this research, and after that, they shared their findings with the donors because it was the 5 years project, and when they shared the findings with donors and the impact in the result, which was positive, as you mentioned, they extended for 5 years more the project, the same project with the target and the same budget. So it means that, but is there any differences between the only the evaluations, and then, for example, where we have M&E and monitoring and evaluation process, which is also have some externals or doing also that, are they same and or there is some differences? Thank you.
Very good question. It's a very important question, and I'm very happy that I am not supposed to talk about some hypothetical question. It is a very real situation. Basically, monitoring is always different from evaluation research. Monitoring is basically a procedural activity of a development agency. But evaluation research is basically a kind of research tool in the sense that it is going to help you by its outcome to not only modify your understanding in the development process, but it is also going to alter the impact or the outcome of a particular development process. Now, what is the difference? Monitoring is specific in the sense it is limited. Limited because in monitoring, we try to see everyone is working. For instance, we try to see that our field executives are leaving for the field by 9 a.m. and they are coming back by 6:30, and we are also ensuring that they are, of course, with breaks. They are for 4 to 5 hours. They are engaged in those with those communities. Those are particular stakeholders. Okay, this is a kind of monitoring thing, but evaluation research is the you can say advanced version of that monitoring, because it is not monitoring, rather it is going to analyze all those dimensions as what how their activities are creating a kind of impact on the outcome, on the supply, on the accomplishment of a particular objective. That means in monitoring process, you are dealing with the everyday situations, and you are trying to be consistent in your research activities. But the whole purpose of evaluation research is completely different, because it is going to analyze, examine all those dimensions, so that you can understand how we can modify, or we can abandon, or we can continue with those particular development services or that particular programs. So is that helpful enough you to differentiate that monitoring is completely different from evaluation research?
For sure, ma'am. Thank you very much. Wonderful.
Okay,
Thank
okay.
you.
Thank you.
You are muted, ma'am.
Thank you for the reminder. Now let's talk about the second category of this typology. Earlier we were talking about typology on the basis of who is going to evaluate. Now the second typology is based on when are we going to evaluate. So earlier we were talking about who are going to evaluate. Now we are going to talk about when are we going to evaluate. So this is a kind of terminology that we are going to use here. For instance, in first subcategory, you can say that appraisal ex ante. What is that? It's a kind of critical examination that actually selects and compares various suitable intervention strategies, various solutions, but when before the beginning of a project. It's a kind of uh, comparison between all those available uh, intervention strategies, or the available options, or the available solutions, which can be more prolific, which can be not. So the whole process of selecting or ranking or evaluating intervention strategies and solutions is same, but what is different, you are conducting this whole process before the beginning of a project, then we call it appraisal ex ante. Now let's talk about mid-term evaluation. Mid-term, the name suggests the typology, the name suggests the timing of the that evaluation. It is going to be done when the implementation has been going on. So, in the first subcategory, you were analyzing all those intervention strategies and solutions before the beginning of a project, but now you are doing the same analysis but during implementation. And the third is ex post evaluation, means you are going to analyze all that only after completion of a particular development program. So these are typologies. Now uh, first thing is that this kind of terminology regarding time is going to be very important for us in coming slides. So there are three basic subcategories in this temporal understanding and evaluation. One is beginning of a project, second is in the midterm, and the third is after the completion. Now let's try to understand. There are total five types of research designs in evaluation research. And again, we are not supposed to be very consumed to be consumed by this technical kind of labeling and all that terminology. We have to be very clear cut only about the timing and the frequency. So here we are going to combine number one the time, and the second component is the frequency of study. So the first is the after only evaluation design without a control group. That means in this we are going to measure the target group only once, and that point is only after completion. So the frequency is only one time, and the timing of that evaluation is going to be only after completion of that particular time. And it is very clear that we are not using any control group. So this is very clear. If you are going to focus on the frequency and the time, then these designs in evaluation research are going to be very valuable to all of you. Now this time is 6:30. Let's take a small break of 10 minutes so that all of you can offer your prayers. Let's meet after 10 minutes break. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
So can we resume?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, thanks a lot. So to memorize and to understand these designs, the trick to do that easily is to focus on the frequency and the time of the evaluation. Then in the second type, the after only evaluation design with the control group. In this, because we are having another group that we call, one is target group and the another is control group. That means one is the experimental group. That means in this case, again, we are going to conduct evaluation research only after the completion, but one group is the control group and the other group is the experimental group. Now the third is the before after evaluation design without control group. Again, this is a kind of evaluation research which is not establishing any control group, but the frequency is going to be higher as compared to the first subcategory, that is the after only evaluation. So what is the difference between first and third subcategory? The only difference is two measurements, that is the higher frequency, so that you can compare what was the situation before and what is the situation after that particular study, that particular the that particular um factor or that particular indicator that you have introduced in that process. So this is going to actually evaluate between two types of the same group, that is a target group, once before and once after the completion of a particular project. Then the fourth is the before after evaluation design with
Ma'am,
control group.
sorry for jumping.
Yes, yes, please, please.
Can you just let me know a bit more about the control group and target group? So what is difference there?
Okay, okay. Control group and target
Thank you.
group means when we are saying that there is no control group, that means we are not going to create another group by choice, because in experimental group, let's go to the to simplify the first category. When we are saying it, we are conducting evaluation research without a control group. That means we are not dividing that population or a particular supply of a particular development service like education facility in two areas. We are not dividing them in two areas. We are covering the whole area in one group that we call our target group. But when we say that we are going to introduce control group means you are actually creating some sort of categorization on the basis of some artificial yet logically reduced division or the marker, like you are dividing that population in two categories. First, those are living in the vicinity of a particular school, it is around 1 or 2 kilometers distance, and the other group is going to be your control group, where you are taking, first of all, you are making that on the basis that that group is located at the larger distance, okay, from that particular institute, from that particular school. And then, because you are calling it control group, that means you are going to focus on one special indicator. That means that indicator has to be focused in control group, while that particular indicator is actually missing from the other group. For instance, you start using uh, printed material, okay, as well as that printed material is available in both of those groups, but in your control group you also worked on increasing access of audio visual devices. So the print was not audio visual in the sense that it was only printed. But now, when you are using audio visual and then you are measuring the impact, that means this kind of particular control group is going to be measured only on the basis of some uh, intervention that is logically planned. Okay, this is the whole idea. So the
Appreciate it, man. Thank you very much. Now
is
it is
that
very
clear to you?
clear. Thank you.
Muhammad Wali, had you raised your hand by choice? If there is something we can discuss, I guess it was accidentally done. Okay, anyway. So the whole idea to understand these various types of designs in evaluation research is to focus, number one, on the frequency, and number two, the time of the evaluation. Nothing special here. Then in the last, ex post facto evaluation research design. In this, we try to understand the casual relationships with data gathered by survey. In this, actually, we are focusing on uh, more than one indicators, okay, so that we can understand the relationship between the independent variable as well as intervening variable, but we are doing it specifically after the completion of that particular development program or project. Now let's move to another most important study method, that is action research.
Ma'am, sorry for interrupting. I have a question.
Yes, please.
Ma'am, I was wondering if you could please tell me the difference between the third kind of evaluation research, that pre and post the evaluation which we had, and the between the true experimental design that we have studied before. Because on that also we had a control group and also have an experimental group, and we would examine them before and after the treatment. So
Okay.
what's the difference? Could you please tell
Difference
me?
difference is that you are actually increasing chances of the observation regarding the possible impact of a particular intervention strategy. For example, if you can recall, in earlier classes we were talking about hypothesis, and when we were talking about hypothesis, we were talking about one specific area, that is linking uh, the impact of health performance, particularly reproductive health among women, with help of their education. So let's take that example because it is more easy for you to understand that particular difference, because we need something realistic so that we can understand what is the control group and how do we measure those different intervention strategies. For example, in this evaluation research, we are planning to measure the more suitability of which intervention strategy is more suitable for better outcome. One option is printed posters, and the other option is a kind of audio visual, like a short video of 2 minutes, that is designed in a particular manner, so that without losing your interest in the topic, everyone, whether illiterate or literate, he or she can go through that particular audio visual intervention strategy. Now, how are you going to measure that? You have categorized your population in two parts. One is called the normal group, the control group, where actually you are not introducing any particular intervention strategy, while the other group in which you are going to introduce that intervention solution or intervention strategy that is exposed only, that is introduced only in that experimental group. And then you are conducting this by uh, by evaluating this twice. That means in the beginning you are asking them a list of questions regarding awareness, regarding the food quantity and the nutrition and their awareness related to all those minute details like taking care of health and hygiene, taking care of that safe drinking water, including uh, that particular reproductive phase of a lady's exposure to such chances that can lead her to severe infection and other things. So this is a kind of structured tool. With help of that structured set of questions, you can understand, you can compare whether is there any difference, because in the beginning you are asking them the same set of questions, then after 6 months or after 2 months, after you introduce that intervention strategy, audio visual intervention strategy in that experimental group, and after 2 months or 6 months again you are going there and you are again asking same set of questions, and then you can understand whether they have improved their awareness, number 1, then whether they have whether this awareness have created whether this awareness has created any measurable impact on the outcome regarding reproductive health of those ladies. Only this kind of analysis can help you to validate your claims that yes, this kind of intervention tool or intervention strategy can enhance the outcome. This is the way we do it. I try to summarize it in a short example. Is it okay with you? Can you make out what I was trying to explain, Muhammad Wali?
Yes, ma'am. But again, it's a kind of confusion. Like, for example, when I said about the one RCT experiment which was done in Afghanistan, like there were the researcher had two group of people, like students. Of course, they evaluated them before the intervention, and then they had two group, control and the treatment group, and at the end they again evaluated them on the same basis that they have done pre the intervention. So now what we call it, was it an experimental true, we can say that experimental true experimental design, or no, if it was an evaluation
I
evaluating it.
think, thank you for making it more clear to me. I think there is a fine line between research design and research design in evaluation research. First, try to understand the difference. When you are reading or you are covering a type topic in the title of research design, okay, this is something different. But when you are talking about research design, particularly in evaluation research, it is completely different. Okay, because why? Let me explain you by going to the same slide again. It is not only experimental research design, because in some sort or the other, in some dimension or the other, in all those five types, number one, two, three, and four, five, you are actually experimenting with the intervention. But can we call it only experimental research design? No, because the purpose is here to assess, to evaluate the profitability, the valuability, the researchable productivity of a particular development intervention. So in that case, you can also get confused by diagnostic research design, which is not the case. This is neither research design nor experimental design. This is research design in evaluation research, and it is completely different from that research design which you had already covered in research methods in general. Here, this is part of the evaluation research. That means the whole idea behind this kind of design is not just to give you some sort of solution, neither to make you able to have a descriptive understanding that you do in descriptive research design. But what is the main purpose behind this research design category, specifically in evaluation research? All five designs that we have discussed here are basically aimed at evaluation of the outcome, the service, the supply side of development programs, which is not never the case same with that research design. So are you able to understand the basic difference?
Yes, ma'am, it's clear now. Thank you.
Okay, okay, thanks a lot.
I'm sorry, you are muted.
Sorry, thanks for the reminder. Sometimes you are lost in the discussion. Okay, anyway. So action research is again the very another very significant research tool in this kind of research, where the whole aim behind research is to create a better a society, an agency, or development services that are more dedicated to the betterment of the underprivileged. So, action research is another area, another tool in research method, particularly relevant to the rural development strategies. Why? Because it is always trying to understand one particular research problem through the perspective of stakeholders. That means it has to be coming from the local challenges and felt needs. That means action research is not general in the sense here like evaluation research. Here in action research, we are not going to cover all those parts of a development agency or a particular development program. We do action research only to diagnose, number one, to diagnose various symptoms that are going to ruin development performance of a particular agency or program. And then once we are able to diagnose those symptoms, then we are going to work on those symptoms so that we can solve that specific problem by developing some sort of better, suitable development strategy. But this kind of definition has to be dealt with precaution, because there is a very fine line. There is a fine line difference between applied research and action research. That is why it is very important to understand the difference between applied research and action research. So, action research is not general in the sense it is always open to only one specific problem. Second, main hypothesis is going to be completely crude in the sense you are not bound to frame your hypothesis in strict terms, because you are not conducting action research for acquiring knowledge. You are conducting action research for specific problem solving. That means it is giving you a flexible kind of hypothesis which is not supposed to be formulated in strict terms. Whatever is going to help to solve that problem, and that is suitable to those stakeholders, that can be incorporated. So this overall design in action research is going to be crude, that what we call crude, not so specific. It is liberal, it is flexible, because it incorporates everything which is going to, number one, diagnose that particular problem, number two, solve that particular problem by a specific intervention. So in this, it is a kind of flexible, not so specific, and crude kind of research where the whole area is going to be defined by only those variables, those are direct part of a particular specific problem. And that is why not even the research tool, even the sample has to be completely liberal. So you are going there with a very liberal kind of approach, so that you can identify how to solve a particular problem, rather than just to be stick to some specific type of sampling, like representative or random sampling. There as is again, you are not bound to follow any particular type of sample, but it doesn't mean that action research is going to be as liberal as it is going to give you a free check, not even in terms of the variables, but also you are free to define reality as per your choice. No, that means objectivity, in terms of objectivity, in terms of reliability, in terms of validity, action research is not going to compromise the stakes of validity and reliability. Why? Because in action research, you are supposed to explain the whole process, to prove the basic linkage between those particular intervening variables and the dependent variable, so that you can establish that this problem was occurrence of this kind of situation, and this kind of situation can be solved by this kind of intervention technique. And that is why the only thing which is going to be the first and last principle in last guiding principle, the first and last guiding principle in action research is not to compromise the validity, reliability of your research, but it is action oriented, means it is very specific in its orientation. Action research is not applied research, it is only specifically focused to find out, to first of all, to diagnose a particular problem in any development program or agency, and then to solve it out by offering one alternative development intervention. And that is why the whole difference you can see from the first point to that of the last, the goal, the hypothesis, the treatment variables, and even the analysis of data. The researcher is not bound to follow one specific program. Why? Because in the process of following those structured program, you will not be able to be flexible, to get a fresh perspective, to understand what was the problem and how you could solve it out. That is why the whole guiding principle in action research is to prove the validity and reliability, while in the other areas, the researcher is as free, as flexible to incorporate all those dimensions that are directly responsible, that are directly associated, that are directly accountable in terms of a particular specific problem. Now, stages of action research. We can skip this slide because there is nothing very specific. These are, we have already discussed during the basic process of research investigation. So this is going to be the same process. The only one difference is that in first stage, you are not formulating any research problem. Rather, you are actually identifying the symptoms of a particular problem. It has to be completely defined logically. Only then you can conduct a successful action research. So let's skip this slide. Then another type of investigation is research inquiry. And research inquiry is completely different from evaluation research and action research. What is the difference? Let's try to understand one thing. What is the purpose of research inquiry? This is especially formulated, designed to understand the social phenomena with its multi-layered social reality, with this complicated, with its complexity, with its multidimensional subjectivity. How? Let's discuss one by one. First of all, uh, this research inquiry can be extensive as well as intensive. And that is why you can see here the survey method and the case study method. Those are going to be subdivided in the incoming discussion. Basically, research inquiry is giving you a very basic, intensive, and extensive understanding for a particular population, for a particular community, so that you can plan, you can improve, you can enhance your development strategies gradually. Now, let's make it more specific. I am taking 1 minute break because I have to switch off my alarm bell. I'm just coming back within 1 minute. Please give me 1 minute. My apologies for the intervention, for the interruption. Uh, Now, let's try to understand how we need and why we need research inquiry in this specific area of rural development research. We know very well that for the objectivity, we require value neutrality. Value neutrality means the researcher has to be free from all types of bias, all types of values, because I am coming from a different background. I may have different types of values, but my values, my cultural understanding, my socio-economic background, my psychological, my political exposure must not interfere my study as a researcher. But the complex part is that the subject, community stakeholders, those are actually part of your study group or study population, must not be value free. They are having their own socio-cultural values, their own norms, their own patterns of behavior, their own traditions, their own socio-cultural setups. So researcher has to be value neutral, but we have to conduct the whole study by incorporating this population along with their values, norms, and patterns of behavior. Only then we can understand how are they going to respond to our development intervention. That means in research inquiry we have two types of dimensions. On the part of researcher, value neutrality has to be exercised, but on the part of subject, because you are there not just for the objectivity, values, norms, they vary from society to society. So you have to study that particular area with including or incorporating their values, their norms, their practices, their cultural traditions. Only then you can understand that community as a whole. That means researcher has to be value free, but values and norms of a particular population have to be incorporated in your study. So value neutrality on the part of researcher is important, but you can't conduct any research in rural development in bereft of the values of that community. So you have to conduct a study along with their values and norms. Only then you are going to develop a deeper insight, and you can develop better intervention strategies and solutions and models. So there are two basic methods in this type of research inquiry. First is survey method, and the second is case study method. Again, the basic difference between survey method is that these are larger, these are extensive, these are quantitative, but case study methods are intensive. That means in case study method, you are trying to zero down your subjectivity so that you can understand the whole process. While in survey method, you are going to to study the extensive part of your subject or the community, so that you can get a complete understanding in that population. That means survey method is going to be the extensive method, and case study method is going to be the intensive method of research inquiry. Now let's take both of them one by one. The very good example, very suitable example to understand how survey method works for extensive understanding of data is census survey. All of you must be aware of census survey. And during a kind of electoral process at the time of election, there are also surveys of public opinion. It is extensive because survey method is always extensive in the sense it is going to measure whatever you have planned in a very larger segment of population. Survey method is never about zero down. Survey method is making the space as broader as you can. When you are minimizing the space of your population, that means you are shifting gradually to case study method. But when you are talking about the larger population, only survey method is going to help you. So census survey, opinion survey are very good examples to understand how survey method works. Second thing which is very important is to understand, let me highlight this point for all of you. Survey methods, it's not visible enough. Let it be like yellow. Yeah, that is better. Survey methods are horizontal. Horizontal in character means these are not longitudinal study over a span of time. Never. They are always about the simultaneously working indicators. That is why we call it horizontal in nature. And how do you measure that? You measure that with help of a structured schedule of questions, giving you an opportunity to gather every basic information regarding general population. That means That means survey method is extensive in the sense it is giving you fixed kind of structure of questioning inquiry. You are bound to follow this structured schedule of questions, schedule structures of area. But in case study method, it is just opposite because it is not extensive. It is, again, let me tell you again, it is trying, you are trying to zero down one sample or two sample or five only. It is not much more in terms of number. Number has to be the least in case study, but it is intensive in the sense it is covering the whole process, the whole uh, the whole process of go facing challenges, overcoming that those challenges related to any particular development program. That means in such a condition, the whole unit, it can be anything, it can be one community, it can be one age group in that community, it can be a particular population living in particular locality of one village, but this all is going to be treated as a single unit of investigation. So the basic difference between survey method, in survey method the number of units was much more. That is why we are calling it again and again extensive. But in case of case study method, it is going to be intensive. Why? Because these are going to be treated as one single unit of investigation, and that is why the units are treated as a whole, and you conduct case studies particularly for the purpose of deeper understanding as how that particular underprivileged community is facing problems. Number one, why particular development programs are not being accepted by those communities, or why a particular development program is not supplying better outcomes, is not facilitating better outcomes to one particular community. So in case study method, this is a kind of intensive investigation where, number one, what is the requirement? The requirement is to maintain that investigation throughout the process of time. It has to be continuous. For instance, if you are taking a particular population living in a slum area, then you have to take it in some sort of their life history as well, like questions with how long have you been residing in that particular slum area, so that you can understand the local history and the life history of that particular population. Then it is again continue in the sense you can ask them what development programs were available at that time when you were here. So this is a kind of developing deeper insight by investigating continuity in investigation. That is the first hallmark and very key hallmark of case study method. Then why do we treat every time it as a single unit, as a whole? Because we are focusing on completeness of that process. That means throughout that process you are developing a kind of insight into all those phases, like when you were not beneficiary of that particular process, then how you become the beneficiary of that process. Number three, are they treating you equally? So there can be lots of things, but all those dimensions are going to be treated in that one single unit of investigation, so that you can capture one phenomena in this completeness, authenticity of data. Sometimes people say that because case study method is purely intensive and it is going to develop a deeper insight, so it is actually researchers perception whether you can develop a very good case study, or you can show a very devastating kind of a case study that is actually giving you understanding as how the failure of a particular development program can alter life chances of a particular community. But whatever is the purpose of the investigator, the researcher, as much as data is authentic, you can't question this case study has to be always positive, or this case study has to be only with a negative kind of impact. The impact can be showcased as positive, the impact can be showcased as narrated as negative, but it has to be authentic. Or confidentially recording is always required, but sometimes when we are dealing with general topics like the accomplishment of ladies, then you can take a picture of them, you can show them everything, but when you are dealing with some sort of sensible topics, only then you are supposed to be to maintain that secrecy. For instance, if you are conducting case studies in human trafficking, so nobody wants to show his or her face as a victim of self human trafficking in any documentary or in any printed material. That means uh, sensibility wise, topic wise, confidential recording has to be done one with maintaining secrecy. Intellectual synthesis, this has to be very important characteristics of case study. Why? Because case study are not just segmented observations or segmented analysis about one unit of investigation. Never. We use case study method to enhance our report writing, or to enhance our evaluation research, or to enhance our action research. These are supplementary research methods, because there is a requirement to connect the dots of method. Like, you are supposed to locate and to narrate that particular case study following the basic objectives of your overall research. So the good part with case study method is that despite of conducting a very extensive research, you can conduct one or two case studies to develop a qualitative understanding into that particular data. So this is all for today's discussion. Let's wind up our discussion now, and if we have anything to discuss, let's discuss. And please, yes, switch on your camera if it is possible. Otherwise, it's okay, no worries. So, is there any query or reflection or any observation that we are supposed to discuss? Nobody is speaking. Why? My teacher, a very good professor in sociology, he keeps telling us, if you are not asking questions, that means either the teacher is going to be a complete failure, or the learning is going to be a complete failure. Because no study, no confusion, and more study, more confusion. So both things are not good for learning, particularly in higher education.
One thing, ma'am, to be added.
Yes, please.
Actually, we did not study this chapter yet. But if we go through this chapter, I'm sure some question will rise. In the next lecture, we will ask those questions, inshallah.
Very good reflection, and actually, it is going to help you better. For instance, I can tell you very clearly that in coming session, in the next session, we are going to start third block. We have covered two blocks of research methods in rural development so far, and in coming next Monday morning, we are going to cover 2 or 3 units of uh, third block. So you can go through that material well in advance, that is available there. And because you have time, you can divide your time into major activities. First is revision of the text and re-listening these lectures that you are attending right now, and as soon as possible try to revise your text material, try to at least highlight main points, and to go through this our either PowerPoint presentation or through that recorded lecture. So in that case you will be able to memorize, to able to understand those things very clearly, and then on Sunday you can go through those texts like unit like first unit, I think this is going to be the 7 and 8. So far we have covered 8 units. So in the coming time we are going to cover unit 9, unit 9, unit 10, and if time allows us I'll be trying to incorporate unit 11 too, because we need more time for 2 units that are going to create problems for us. Those are related to statistical or quantitative techniques. So I am just trying to save that time. So you can go through that text. Anything else? Very silent. Anyway, let's wind up this session then. In that case, let's meet tomorrow, next morning. Okay, thank you. Take care.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Take care.
Okay,
Take
okay.
care. Good
Take care.
rest.
Bye bye. Bye
Thank
bye.
you for your presentation and goodbye.
Thank you. Bye. Khuda Hafiz. Namaskar.
Khuda Hafiz.